Today, we have a very special and unique episode for Real Estate First Technology Unleashed. As today, we're going to go a little bit more into mind, body, and spirit connection. More importantly, as you go through 2024 and beyond, growing your business, how are you taking care of yourself? How are you taking care of your health? And how are you balancing your life? So, today's episode, we have someone that is an owner of an amazing location called Optimyze here in the Tempe location, and also there's another location in the Phoenix area, so North Phoenix. And he's someone that has a military background. He's one of the instructors and worked with Mr. Wim Hof, if you know about the breathing technique on that side of things. So today we have the one and only Michael on the show. Welcome, Michael, to Real Estate Versus Technology. I'm excited to have you on, talk all things about biohacking. There's some other things that you want to talk about as well in this health and wellness world, because I feel like a lot of individuals out there don't really maybe think about cold plunge or red light therapy or compression therapy, a lot of things that you guys do at Optimize to really optimize, would you say, mind, body, and spirit?
Yeah, I would say one of the things that all these technologies have in common is that they all mimic nature.
Mm,
So we'll talk about the connection between all of the new science and tech and all the cool stuff that's out there, but
yeah.
what they're all really doing is just mimicking what nature has already provided us.
I love that. I love that. That's super huge. So let's get a little bit back into your story. Just cliff notes. I mean, you've done a lot of things. I got to say, out of all the guests that we had on the show, Michael, your resume, your background is extensive. From serving our country, thank you so much for your service, to traveling the world, working with Mr. Wim Hof, to even doing other things within like the ayahuasca world, and just really helping people just elevate and get to a different, I feel like, space outside of our normal space that a lot of people live in. So can give us a little bit of your background. Like how'd you go from serving our country to owning Optimize? I know you used to be in the corporate world and you had a completely different life. And from that life to where you live now, I mean, 180, I can only imagine.
Yeah, I mean, I've gone through a lot of different stages. I think that's the beautiful part of life is that you get to grow and learn and have new experiences. I,
Yeah.
I definitely want to continue to evolve every year. And, as we approach the new year now, so
Yeah.
it's like, what's in store for me next year? But ultimately, I'm a kid from Queens. I grew up in New York City, born and raised in New York, and I lived there till I was about 20, until I
Wow.
made the decision to join the U.S. Navy. There's a lot of things that kind of factored into that decision. I was kind of on a path to maybe trouble, and I was really thinking, okay, I need to find something new.
Yeah.
And the Navy helped me to get out of my comfort zone, get out of my,
Yeah.
awareness, of what I already knew, which as big as a city as Queens is compared to most places around the planet, and it's a very
Mm,
diverse city,
yeah.
um, it felt very much like a small town for me,
Wow. Really?
very much like a small town. And so the Navy changed me in many ways. So I joined the military. That took me to Pensacola, Florida. That's
Mm,
where I went into a program called Air Crew School,
okay.
Rescue Swimmer School,
Got it.
which is helicopter search and rescue. And then I
Wow.
was an aviator called Aviation Warfare System Operator.
Wow. That's
That's
pretty
where
cool.
you learn how to track submarines, hunt submarines from the sky.
Okay.
So we hunt submarines both from the sky, from submarine to submarine, and also from ship to submarine. So I
Got
was
it.
part of the aviation element of that. Um, and then eventually I was stationed in San Diego, California. That's where my permanent duty station was.
Beautiful place.
And I got there in 2000. And so I finished up my training in San Diego. And then shortly after I was done with my training, all of this conflict started kicking off,
Mhm.
right? 9/11
Oh
happened.
my god,
And so
yeah.
I was in the military during that time. So then I was the first carrier battle group to deploy to Afghanistan. And so then I had that experience.
Wow.
And then, in 2003, we had more conflict with United States waging war in Iraq,
Mm.
and so that whole conflict was called the Iraqi Freedom.
Mhm, mhm.
And so our battle group, our carrier, our squadron was deployed for that.
Got it.
And then, after my time with the military, I left and
Mm.
separated, and then came to Arizona, and
Wow.
that's when I got into the corporate world and started working for a university for many years. And so I worked my way up the ranks there, which was also an interesting experience as
Mm.
a senior director of operations for the Office of Military and Veteran Affairs,
Wow.
mainly managing. all of the education programs that are eligible for not only military personnel, but active duty reserve, National Guard, and spouses and children. So we worked with those programs.
Mm.
And shortly after that, I got into the world of I would say biohacking, health, wellness.
Wow.
I've always been into fitness, fitness being part of my life from my teenage years to current, but all of these biohacking techniques are relatively new. I
Mhm.
started doing that, I would say, probably like 2011 is
Wow.
really when I started, um, way before it become kinda popular and
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah, that's, like, blown up most recently for
Yeah,
sure.
it got really popular, and then, I'd mentioned the ayahuasca, so, yeah, so I had some journeys there, and, happy to talk about that experience. But, yeah, I traveled the world, saw many places, saw many different people,
Wow.
and, yeah, just continue to grow and learn and go from there.
That's so cool. What called you to Arizona at all the places? I know it's not too far, about 5.5 hours from San Diego. Beautiful place, by the way, as well. Was it a calling or opportunity? Because you could you see the corporate
I saw a lot of
opportunity?
opportunity, yeah. So,
Okay.
for me, I was living in San Diego, I was stationed with the Navy, I was stationed on actually Coronado Island,
Ah,
part of a helicopter squadron that was there. So when I made the decision to separate, it was pretty much time to go into the civilian sector and figure out what am I going to do for the rest of my life.
yeah.
I was starting to think like, what can I do? When you're on the ship, you have a lot of downtime,
Interesting.
and so if you're not flying, you're either working out, eating, or sleeping.
Okay.
And so I read a lot of books when I was in the service, especially on deployment.
Mm,
And so I was reading a lot of books about investment. I was reading lot of books about business.
yeah.
And so I was really much interested in business when I got out. And when I moved to Arizona in 2004, I noticed there was a lot of opportunity here.
Mm,
The housing market was on a boom.
yeah.
There was a lot of businesses that were coming to Arizona during that time. Arizona, Phoenix, Scottsdale was very affordable. So the first city I got to move to, here was Scottsdale, and compared to where I grew up in Queens
Mhm.
and compared to where, I was living in San Diego, the
Yeah.
cost of living in Scottsdale, Arizona was amazing.
Wow.
So I saw an
I agree.
opportunity to buy a home, to, really just create a lifestyle that I wasn't able to create, as a young man growing up in Queens or even as a military guy on active duty in San Diego. So I
Wow.
saw, Scottsdale and Phoenix as a place for opportunity.
Wow, that's awesome. So for the viewers and listeners out there, and you never know who's watching. It could also be anyone out there too that maybe is in the corporate world and going through maybe kind of what you went through. And I remember we had some conversations before about kind of just the work life balance in the corporate world, what that looked like, some things that just opened up your eyes to like, hey, is this for me? Right before I feel like you kind of got into the like biohacking and the optimized world, so from the balance perspective, from owning your own business, which I can't wait to get into your business, what you guys do and biohacking and all the things to where you were, right, in corporate America and going through that process. I'm sure you worked out and stayed healthy and things like that, but I feel like you're on a whole nother level with what you're doing. I mean, and your information out there and follow him. Links are down below. It's just phenomenal.
Yeah, I would say the corporate world is not very healthy, and
Mm,
so my unhealthiest years were spent in the corporate world for sure.
got it.
You're in an environment, and I know a lot of people work from home today, and I think that's a better situation actually
Hmm.
because you don't have to sit in your car and, I was driving to work 45 minutes, driving home 45 minutes every
Wow.
day, so that's, like, part of your everyday,
Yeah.
commute, and then you're spending 9 hours in the office, and you're under these, like, toxic blue lights, sitting in
Uh,
front of screens. There's all kinds of, people bringing in food and different things like that, people bringing
yeah.
in bagels, donuts, all the potluck stuff. So
Yeah.
there's a lot of that, and then there's the drinking element, a lot of
Hmm.
people go out drinking after, so there's that, there's the happy
Yeah.
hour crowd. So I got caught up in all that, that was all new to me, that was not something that, we did in the military.
Yeah.
We drank plenty, but,
Yeah.
the corporate life was relatively new to me, and at first it was really exciting just to work around all the different people.
Mm.
But I did notice over time I was gaining weight. I definitely became more lethargic. My sickest years, like the years that I felt my absolute worst, were during my corporate times, for
Wow.
sure. So I don't think corporate life is really healthy. I would say most people are not necessarily. really driven by the mission of the corporation that they're working
Yeah.
for.
Yeah. For sure.
They're working for the job because they need the career, they need the money, they need the
Mhm.
paycheck, they need the
Mhm.
insurance. They're excited about the benefits.
Yeah.
They're excited about those things. They're not necessarily excited about the mission. Every time a new CEO or president came in, they kind of changed things in a different direction, and they would try to get people, like, on board with the new mission or
Yeah.
and so I just felt like, yeah, I just didn't really feel fulfilled there. I would say the thing that kept me motivated was the money, and there was a lot of opportunity to make
Yeah.
good money, during the times that I was there. I did meet a lot of great people. I learned a lot. I went back to
Mm.
school. There's many positive things that came out of my experience.
Yeah.
I was able to, learn how to lead in a corporate environment on a large scale where there's
Yeah.
lots of people. I was able to take what I learned from my military career and apply it towards the business world.
Wow.
So there was great opportunity for sure. But when I would look back and I say, when was I at my worst? When was I sickest? It was definitely during my corporate time.
Mm.
And so I think a lot of people are stuck in that rut of like they don't really feel passionate about what they do. Um, they want to do other things. They're
Yeah.
scared to. They're
Yeah.
used to just getting paid every 2 weeks. They're used to not necessarily having to hunt. Just being in that
Mhm.
stable environment, and they're scared to let go of the things that keep them there, like the benefit packages and the
Yes.
insurance and what we would call job stability, which is not that stable anymore because so many
Mhm.
corporations are constantly laying people off.
Yeah.
So how stable are they? It's not like the old days where people would, find a career at 21 and they would work from 21 until retirement with the same company.
Yep.
You
It's not
don't
like that anymore.
you don't see that anymore.
No, not at all.
Pensions and all those kinds of things. People get kicked around. So yeah, the corporate world, it's an experience, and there's
Yeah.
pros and cons to everything. I mean, there's
Mhm.
pros and cons to the military. Not everything was rainbows and unicorns in the military. There's a lot of
I can imagine.
challenges, and leaving the service, there was a lot of challenges, and I mean, you see it. There's a lot of veterans that are in a really bad place.
Mm.
We at one point we had 22 suicides a day. I'm not sure if that's still
Wow.
the statistic. I'm not 100% sure, but that was definitely something that was being communicated for a long time. And I served the military veteran community quite a bit after my time in service,
Mm.
and so I met a lot of veterans who were struggling physically because they were literally shot and,
Yeah.
and blown up in a war type environment,
Wow.
and then all the invisible injuries of anxiety, depression, sleeplessness, substance abuse,
Wow.
all that stuff. So the military comes with its negative experience as well.
Yeah. Wow. 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 And just to kind of bring it all together for anyone who's listening or viewing out there, whether you're in the corporate environment, you potentially want to explore new opportunities, like say getting into real estate, right, or getting into mortgage, and this is real estate first technology. Or if you're serving our country currently, thank you for your service, and you want to get into real estate, or you want to get into this world, or what we're going to go into, get into the world of biohacking and what it looks like to be a part of the community that you're bringing up. And I know you have an event coming up here soon, which is going to be absolutely amazing. I believe by the time this airs, you're going to have to join him for the next year. But I want to say it's New Year's Eve. You guys are going to go up to, I believe, is it Sedona? Or you guys going to Sedona? Yeah, you're going to go do some cold plunge and a whole retreat, right? You got about 100 people, I think it was, you said?
Yeah, it's a big group. We do it every year. It's basically an event we call Overcoming Fear in Nature.
Okay.
And it'll be cold outside because it's winter, and in Sedona, Arizona, it's chilly,
Yeah, yeah.
and then the water's even colder. So it's a whole experience. It's really like a water purification ceremony, and
Wow.
I was inspired by a practice called the Japanese Shinto practice. It's called Misagi, Misogi,
Hmm. Hmm.
and the Misagi Japanese Shinto practice is a very, very old practice that people have been doing in Japan, using cold water during the winter time as a water purification. And so I was doing that personally myself, and people started to kinda catch on and see what I was doing on Instagram and curious, and then so every year it just started getting more and more,
I love that.
busy, so
I love
it's
when
been
you
fun.
I love when you can have those opportunities where you're just doing you're just doing life, and then people just gravitate because they just see what you're doing, your aura, and just the way that you're just leading by example, which is awesome. That's why I'm so excited to have you on, and we've been trying to do this for a while out there for our viewers and listeners, and it's like life happens, right? And this is real estate first technology, but we did the unleashed version now, so we could start getting amazing guests like yourself and just get into other conversations that can tie into just helping people in general. Like I think this is great for a real estate professional, someone out there. So let's talk about biohacking a little bit and Optimize and just that whole philosophy and concept. Like, how did you even come up with the philosophy, the concept, the name? Like, it's such an interesting concept, which I know now it's more popular. So you're seeing all these different versions of
Right.
it, but you've been doing it for a while. And it's something that I think you were practicing since, like you said, 2011, kind of getting into this world. But yeah,
I
how did
mean,
it
it all really
incubate?
starts with personal development, and personal development's been around a long time,
Yeah.
and a lot of time personal development is very much focused on the mind and
Hmm.
mental aspect things, how you see things, how you perceive things. So that's really where it started for me was just
Okay.
personal development, was just trying to find solutions about
Hmm.
my
Hmm.
own mind. I was struggling post-military, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, all of the above.
Yeah.
And so I was looking for answers. And so if you just go to modern medicine looking for answers, they'll be able to repair certain things.
Mm.
But when you get into the mental aspect, emotional aspect, spiritual aspect, they're going to be missing a lot of things.
Yes.
And even when you get to the physical aspect of government type of healthcare, um, it's going to be very much rooted in surgery, procedures, injections, and pharmaceuticals.
Yep.
And so I had a neck injury in the military where I damaged my cervical spine, and my
Mm.
cervical spine was basically being choked. And so think of
Interesting.
it like this, where basically the communication between your brain and your body is being interrupted as if you're
Mm.
somebody stepping on a wire,
Got it.
the main wire that transfers all the information to your body.
Yeah.
And where the cervical spine was being choked was the part of your spine that controls your arms and your fingers and your hands.
Ooh.
So I saw the most pro- problems in my hands and my
Mhm.
fingers and my arms, and everything from muscle spasms to pain to like loss of feeling to my fingers becoming really, really slow. And
Interesting.
so at the time, they thought I had a disease called multiple sclerosis. And
Yeah.
so they started to look for signs of that. And what they found was that I didn't have MS, but what I did have was a spinal cord injury.
Got it.
And so they was treating me for that. And so then about a year after the surgery, things went fine. The
Okay.
surgery went fine. I started to have complications.
Mm.
And the complications really just led me to start exploring other options because the option that they were presenting at the time was another surgery and more pharmaceutical and more
Mm.
procedures. And
Yeah.
so something intuitively told me there has to be another way.
Yeah.
And so I started to explore some other ways. And there was a book that kind of opened up my eyes to another way, and it was called The Mind Body Prescription by Dr. John Sarno. And
Love
he
it.
talked about something called psychosomatic pain, and that tension in the mind equals tension in the body. And so, in order to relieve yourself of tension in the body, physical pain, you have to address the tension in the mind. And it's the
Mm.
part that's often not addressed or misunderstood.
Interesting.
And so that took me on a journey of like inner exploration. So I started to learn about the mind because it's not something that's obviously taught
No.
at the university or taught in grade school, elementary school, middle school, high school,
Yeah.
no school. And so I really started to learn and be curious about the mind. And so different people started to show up, and I started to learn different philosophies
Mm.
on the mind. Eckhart Tolle was teaching me about, if you're constantly thinking and worrying about the future, then you're basically creating anxiety in your life. If you're
Mm.
constantly reflecting on the past, could have, should have, would have type of mentality, and you're spending a lot of your day in the past, then that will lead to depression. And so, really, the power of the present moment is really what we're trying to cultivate. So, how do you practice that? How do you be more present? And it's easy. Like, I mean, how many times have you had a conversation with somebody where you can just tell they're not present with you, right?
Yeah.
They're thinking about something else. They might
Mhm.
be thinking about a future thing that hasn't occurred,
Yep.
or they might be thinking about something in the past.
Yep.
And so how can you cultivate a practice of being more present? And so that was interesting to me. So that obviously took me down
Wow.
this rabbit hole of meditation, which to me was odd, sitting in a room with your eyes closed, for doing nothing
Yeah.
was not something that I was used to. But the science and the history and everything was just adding up that
Wow.
learning how to quiet your mind was going to be an important part. And so I started to get into something called float tanks.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
I've heard of those.
sensory deprivation
Mhm.
tanks,
Mhm.
and I started to learn about the effects of quieting the mind and
Okay.
basically feeling that sense of peace in the body.
Mm.
And so it really all started out with trying to solve pain, physical
Okay.
pain,
Yep.
an inner exploration of the mind,
Mhm.
and then starting to bring in tools and techniques such as meditation, breathing exercises, float tanks, basically trying
Mm.
to hack, right?
Yeah.
Hack the mind,
Mhm.
figure out, well, how can I slow this machine down? It's
Yeah.
it's it's operating way too fast.
Mhm.
And I was having a lot of sleep issues and sleep disorders. And so that's really where it started for me. And then eventually it got into some of the other technology, like, saunas, red light. But eventually it started out with that. And then cold water therapy became a thing.
Mm.
And the person that introduced cold water therapy to me was Wim Hof.
Yep.
And so I had watched a documentary about Wim Hof, and I was
Amazing.
intrigued. And I was intrigued by his message, about his spirit, about his ability to express himself the way he does. And so I was inspired by him. And so I started practicing his method, which was a breathing exercise, some mental techniques, and then, of course, the cold water, which he's very much known for.
Yeah.
And then shortly after practicing his techniques, I learned that he was going to be in LA. And so I went to LA to see him in person. I did like a 2-day event in LA and met a bunch of wonderful people. At the time, I'm working in corporate America, and I was making a lot of money. I was doing very well. I was really just a couple of seats down from becoming a vice president. I was already a senior
Wow.
director.
Congrats.
I had a big workforce. I had a lot of responsibility. I was very well known, and I was not fulfilled. And it
Wow.
wasn't because of the money. It was just because of the mission, and the mission just wasn't exciting me anymore. I wasn't excited. But the Wim Hof method made me excited, and the people that were following and the method and the science that was being studied regarding Wim Hof, his techniques,
Mm.
excited me.
Yeah.
And so on my way home from that 2-day trip in LA,
Mhm.
I made the decision that I was going to leave my paying job. I
Wow.
was going to let it all go. I was going to become a Wim Hof method instructor. I was going to travel the world, and I was going to start teaching. And at the heart of it, I was a teacher. Like, that's
Mm.
like who I was. And I made that decision, and that was a tough decision because I had built this career. I'd been with one company for
Yeah.
close to 14 years.
Wow.
I had a reputation,
Mhm.
and then the world of entrepreneurship came about, and that's obviously a scary world for many people,
Oh,
and
yeah.
I don't understand why. And so I've had my experiences there, but in my heart, I always wanted to be an entrepreneur because I saw. Here's the thing, in corporate America,
Mm.
I saw the guys that rose to the top,
Yeah.
and they were employees.
Mm.
Even if you're
Yeah.
CEO, you're an employee.
Yeah.
And so they were employees, and they had come from Ivy League schools, and
Okay.
they had worked their way into a position where they're the chief operating officer or
Mhm.
the president of the university or the corporation. And obviously, everyone underneath them were employees,
Yeah.
and there's nothing wrong with that. But I always saw the difference between the founders and the CEOs. The
Mm.
founders had a different swag about them. They had a different way about them.
Yeah, I can see that.
They dressed different, they behaved different, they acted different. They were not as serious. They actually were way more approachable than the CEOs were.
Mm.
And I was like, man, what a different dynamic. But they were the ones with the idea. They
Interesting.
created the machine, and then obviously they hired some people
Yeah.
to run the machine.
Yeah.
And so I was intrigued by that. And I also saw that when you're in corporate America, you can have great ideas,
Mhm.
but to get your ideas to the top, to where they're actually put into action and into play,
Mm.
there's so much red tape. There's so many logistics,
Yeah.
and that the politics of playing the game at that level. When you start to get to a
Mm.
senior director, vice president, chief operating officer, there's a lot of politics. It's
I
all politics.
I
It's
see that.
it's not about what you know anymore. You're not,
Mm.
it's not about being the smartest guy in the room. It's about politics. And so I was learning a lot about politics, and that was interesting. And I
Mm.
actually worked for a guy that was teaching me directly. He was a retired Green Beret, very, very smart.
Yeah, yeah.
And Green Berets know a lot about politics. That's ultimately what they do
Got it.
in the army overseas. And so he was teaching me a lot. And so I was learning a lot. But ultimately, I wanted to take a stab at entrepreneurship. I was curious about it. I wanted to see if I had the ability to do it.
Mm,
And so I had done government work. I worked
mhm.
with the military service. I had many odd jobs as a
Yeah,
teenager working, growing up. I was always working. I started working when I was like 14 years old.
love it.
And then I had done corporate work.
Yeah,
The Navy, we call it from Navy blue to corporate gray.
okay.
And then eventually this world of entrepreneurship that I was so inspired by
Mm,
was just kind of hanging out there. And I was just nervous to take the dive.
wow.
And somebody explained entrepreneurship to me. It's like learning how to parachute, while you jump out of a plane and you're learning on your way down. And so, you don't have all the answers. You're just kind of
Yeah,
learning on the go.
yeah,
And so that is very different from government work. And that's very different from corporate work.
yeah.
So I had to change the way I see everything. And
Wow.
it's been a great opportunity because I'm growing. I put myself into
Yes.
an uncomfortable situation.
Yeah.
And so all of these things were adding up. I was doing uncomfortable things by sitting in cold water up to my,
Mm.
neck for 2 minutes at a time.
Yeah.
I was doing breathing exercise. I was hiking up mountains in the cold with no shirt on in the middle of winter with Wim Hof in Oregon. I was doing all kinds of uncomfortable things. I went down to the Amazon jungle. I studied with the native people from the Amazon, learning about plants and ayahuasca and all kinds of other things as
Yeah, yeah.
well. And so I was doing all of these uncomfortable things.
Mm.
But the one thing that I was hanging on to that was still comfortable was what I would call the golden handcuff, which
Mm.
was the steady job and the
Yes.
paycheck and the bonuses. And so that was the final letting go moment that I
Wow. I just love for anyone who's listening and viewing out there, like, if you're going through something, I just love the idea of, like, you just decided. You're in the car, you're driving after the event, you're just, "I'm just that's it.
yeah,
I'm gonna do this."
I
And
was
then,
feeling so good.
I mean, that's amazing. And then you got to that point where you're like, "All right, now it's time to make that plunge." So take us, like, okay, how did that even like, did you give 2 weeks? You just, "I'm done."
I
Like, how
worked
did
at a
you
really good deal. So I would say if anybody's thinking about leaving their job, general,
Yeah, yeah,
you
yeah.
have to get your ducks in a row. And
Okay.
I tell people all the time, people ask me all the time, one common question: how did you leave corporate America and transition to something that you love? I'm doing this job, I make good money, but I don't love it. I want to do something that I love. I don't even know what I love, but I want to do something.
Mm,
And so my answer to them always is, get your overhead low. So what
mm,
I did is I sold my expensive car. I
okay.
literally bought a Kia that I was driving. I was driving a Kia that cost like $220,000 a month.
Mm,
My mortgage payment was low as I can get it at the time.
mm,
I had a phone bill. I got rid of all my debt at the time. I just didn't have a lot of money that was flowing out. I knew that by
mm.
taking this leap, I was going to be stuck as long as I had a bunch of money flowing out.
Yeah,
Now I had to be in a position where if I didn't have immediate money flowing in, I could still be okay.
yeah, yeah.
So I created a deal with my current career where I was able to stay on board for about 6 months,
Okay.
train the person that was going to take over my career, and
Mm,
still be eligible for my pay and bonuses, and then have 6 months of pay after I
mm.
left. So
Nice.
I negotiated something that made a lot of sense and worked. I did that because I was with the company for so long. I had a lot of information, and they knew that just me leaving was not going to be good for them.
Yeah,
But they needed to basically extract that information out of my brain.
for sure.
And so we went through that process. And so that gave me some cushion, but I also kept my
Mm,
overhead low.
mhm, mhm.
And so I was able to, one, take a little bit of time off and recharge, and then two, um, start to build a business
Mm,
where the business that I was creating at the time, we'll get into that soon, which is Optimyze. There's a lot of building that happens prior to you start making money.
yeah,
You can only start making money when people start coming into the center, but there's this whole construction phase that has
yeah.
to occur first. So I knew I had to prepare for that.
Wow. Man, that is such a great story. So, hope anyone who's taking listening or watching, uh, definitely take some notes, go back, listen to that again, and that's awesome that you worked it out like that. A lot of individuals don't have that flexibility, and I didn't have that flexibility, and it was a hard knock, it's like not everyone does, but I love that for anyone who and, believe it or not, after 10 plus years in this real estate industry, individuals that are listening right now that are in the corporate world that get into real estate transition so nicely because they understand SOPs and KPIs, income producing activities, and where their attention needs to go
Right.
to then be successful. It's a lot of these agents out there that don't understand that. They're like, oh, I just whatever. I just don't want to work for someone. I want to be my own boss, and they're stubborn. Ego gets in the way, and then they, like we lost like 70,000 agents this year, according to
Wow.
NAR, right? Because of the whole low inventory, high interest rate situation. So
Yeah.
this was not an easy year for a lot of people in the space. So,
That makes sense.
but I love that. I think and it's cool too, just for everyone who's listening, and watching. Like we know each other because a mutual friend, Michael, was dating a mutual friend of my wife's, and we've skimmed over some of these, but like these stories, but never got this in depth. So I really appreciate also this opportunity because now it's like no distractions. We could just talk, and I can get more of the story because I already got cliff notes, which is super cool. So now I can like tie it all together and imagine like, okay, this is what happened. This I didn't know all.
There's so many people that are in careers that they're not fulfilled in, and they
Yeah,
know that. But, like, the advice that I have is do your best no matter where you are.
yeah.
Wherever
Why
you
not?
are right now, kick ass. Be the best person at what you're doing, and that is a mentality that I took in every single
Mm,
job or career I had. Be the best. Even
yes.
though I knew it wasn't my life work and I wasn't gonna be here until retirement,
Yeah, yeah.
that doesn't matter. I'm still going to show up and
Hmm.
be the best person I can be until that new opportunity opens. So many people drag their ass and drag their feet,
Ah,
right? While
so
they're in
true.
their current job and they're just waiting for this beautiful opportunity to open. I'm like, energetically, you're not even like giving. You're not,
Yes.
you're not showing up. You're not giving. So these opportunities don't even open up. And
Yes.
so even though I was with my last career and I was unfulfilled for a variety of years, there's a few people that knew about that, but it's not something I broadcasted and let everybody know in my
No.
workplace. But, that's how I felt inside. It didn't matter. I
Yeah.
still showed up. I
Yeah.
still competed. I was still going to do the best.
I love
I
it.
knew there would be a new opportunity that would open. I didn't know when, but it just happened. When it showed up, I knew it. That's why when I drove home from LA, I just knew it. It was a decision that it was not even something I was questioning. I was like, I am going to leave. I'm going to take a chance. And at the end of the day, I can always go back to corporate America
Yeah.
because I have an MBA, I have an undergraduate degree, I had a master's degree in adult education, I had
Wow.
experience, I had military experience. Like I have credentials. Like I can go play the game and go interview and find another decent paying career.
Yeah.
But I said, I will be so pissed if I don't take this shot. And so that's kind of what motivated me to
I
really make
love
the
that.
decision.
I love that. That makes a lot of sense. And I think anyone who's listening or viewing out there, like, show up, be 100%, show up the way that you would show up for hopefully your children, or your mother, your father, yourself, and go for it. I think that's absolutely amazing, and that's where I feel like no matter if it's like, hey, real estate agents are watching, mortgage professionals, whatever in the space, everything's transferable, right? Just the mindset, the positive mindset, and are you here now? I love that book too, The Power of Now. Or are you in the future and past? It's like, and I love the terminology of how you talked about like some of the things as far as where you're at will dictate the outcome of how you're feeling, and those are key performance indications that I never even thought about. And being present is definitely, I think, hard in a modern world when we have these things,
Oh,
and
yeah.
and we're getting pinged, and
It's
there's
making it
this way harder, way harder, and advertisements and all things. That's a whole other story. But so let's get back into the timeline. This is good, man. I'm loving this build up. So we're 33 minutes in. This is awesome. So now you're getting into the build phase. So 6 months, you have that 6 months, you're getting paid, you get the build phase now, and you're building up Optimize to the point where,
well,
I mean,
Optimized wasn't even an idea.
really?
No, at that point, I was literally just gonna travel the world, become a
Okay,
Wim Hof method instructor. I was going through the process of becoming certified.
got it.
So my whole goal was getting in front of people, teaching seminars, classes, workshops,
Okay, okay,
public speaking, doing
got it.
active events. For the first time in my life, I had a flexible schedule.
Mm,
I never had a flexible schedule. I always had to wake up and be somewhere Monday to
yeah,
Friday. This was the first time I had pretty much create my own day. That was a challenge for me. I wasn't used to that.
yeah, yeah,
I was just used to like the work being fed to me.
yeah.
So what I started to do was just start to build my own personal brand locally and
Okay.
start teaching. And so when I started teaching, what I noticed is that a lot of people showing up to classes.
Mm,
The topic of interest was high. People were very much interested in the Wim Hof method, breathing exercises,
okay.
the natural approach towards health, stress,
Yes.
all of that. It was like a growing movement that I
Okay.
kind of got there at the beginning of.
Mm,
And so every class that I was teaching was sold out.
Wow.
sold out, sold out, sold out. A lot of people were showing up, and then after the workshop, the delivery was good. I mean, I had a master's degree in adult education. I was a good teacher.
Mhm.
I taught a lot in corporate America. I taught a lot in the military. I learned from
It's
those
transferable.
experiences.
Perfect.
Transferable, right? And so that was great. I knew PowerPoint. I knew all of those things that some of my other instructors, struggled with. I had
Mm,
that background,
yeah.
and so the workshops were going great. I was meeting wonderful people. Um, People were having all kinds of great feedback on how they felt
That's huge.
coming into the workshop and how they felt
Mhm.
after and how they felt practicing. But the one complaint that I constantly got is like, Michael, what's next? I did the
Ah,
workshop. I met all these wonderful people. Now what? Like, yeah, I can do it by myself. And yeah, but I want to continue this in a group setting. I want to continue to hang
mm.
around these people. It's almost like when you go to the party and you don't want the party to end,
Yeah.
You got that attitude, like you just don't want to go home and call it
Yeah.
quits. So that's how people felt, and that was great feedback. And so that feedback, um, connected with um, my business partner Jesse,
Okay.
and he was also an instructor, and he was also teaching. So we basically just took that feedback and we said, "Okay, how can we create a place where people go practice
Mm,
on a daily basis?"
mm.
Because in order for this to be effective, it has
Yeah.
to be done frequently. You can't go to one Wim Hof method class, do your first cold therapy, ice bath, do a breathing exercise, and then feel great for the rest of the year. That's not reality.
True.
It's the
Yeah.
practice, it's the commitment where the power really is. It's the
Yeah.
discipline actually that leads to happiness.
Mm.
And so how do we create a place where people can practice daily? And so that was the energy that really helped us to come up with the idea behind
Wow.
Optimize. And so what we did is we put cold therapy in Optimize. We put
Okay.
saunas in Optimize.
Yeah.
We added compression therapy into Optimize. We added red light therapy. Then we added
Mm.
PEMF therapy, biocharger, brain tap, new calm. It's really evolved from
Yeah.
where it started, but that's just because we've been going down the rabbit hole learning about all this new technology and what's out there and what works and what's been studied.
Wow. That's absolutely amazing. And I have to say that, like, the transition. I mean, it wasn't like just let's build and come with an idea and like get blockage. It's like, okay, like I already know how to train. I've been in corporate America. Now I have my cert because I went through the Wim Hof training method. Now I'm doing these classes. Then you meet your partner, and it was just like build a progression to a point where like now you already have an audience. You already have people that
Yeah.
went. So it's like, all right, well, we're going to look for a location and this is what we're going to do. And you already have fans and they're already here. And I mean, a lot to be said in contrast to, I know someone who wants to get the real estate business, it's not quite like that. You're not just going to set up, these events and then bring, I mean, you could do seminars and, talk about buying a home, and that's a whole other conversation. So there's something like that, but I love that as far as how that built up and progression to just how it grew. Cause it seems it was just so organic, that whole
Yeah, we had
process.
people that were like, the minute you open up your doors, we're gonna be, and
That's
they did.
amazing.
They showed up to our grand opening. They became clients
Yeah.
immediately, and some of them are still clients today. It's been over 4 years.
Wow.
It's yeah, in April will be 5 years. So you know, um, and that's been really special. Just to have those people. They're like family now.
Mm,
So that's kind of how it worked, and then we just, I mean, honestly, the world of entrepreneurship, the best advice I ever got about entrepreneurship is just like find something in society that really irks you
mm,
and then come up with a solution.
I love that.
Yeah. So one of the things that really irked me from my own experience, my business partner, he has his own experience as well when it comes to health, was the industry. The industry that I grew up in was, if you stub your toe, go to the doctor and they'll give you a pill.
Mm,
If you have a fever, go to the doctor and they'll give you a pill for that, get the fever away. If you have an ache or pain, go to the doctor, they give you a pill for that. Oh, if your knee's a little messed up, go to the doctor, they'll do a procedure, and they'll do a really quick surgery on your knee. So it was like
mm,
a machine, and I kept seeing that, man, this is like a machine. This is crazy, why do we give away our authority? Why
mm,
do we give away our authority to doctors? When did that start happening? You know, um, we have this weird relationship with doctors that really bothered me. They were like
mm,
here, and I was here, and then when I walked to their office, they basically were going to tell me what I'm gonna do with my body, and I was just gonna listen, and if I ask questions, they're just gonna shoot that down because I'm not as smart as
Yes.
right? That's the attitude. It's
Credentials or
the
whatever.
arrogance.
Mhm,
Yeah, it's
mhm.
like, "Oh, what did you do? You found that online?" That's the mentality. "Oh,
Yes.
don't tell me you went researching," "How dare you go research?" Right? But that's literally the mentality, and
Yes.
people defend that. They stick up for them.
Yeah.
I didn't like that attitude, and so the more I learned, the more questions I had,
Mhm.
and every time I went into the office, I asked questions, and I could tell they were very aggravated with me. I could just see
Mm.
their body language. In the VA hospital, they were irritated with my questions. They didn't like it. They
Yeah.
just wanted me to just follow what they needed to do and just and then it was time for me to go.
Yeah.
And so I just kept asking more questions and kept learning. And I got to the point where I can talk the talk. And so it's like the same thing. It's like if you go into any situation where you don't know what you're talking about at
Yeah.
all,
Yeah.
you're most likely giving your authority away.
Yeah.
So if you're gonna go buy a car and you know anything about the car, you don't
Mm.
know what the car costs, what it should cost, what people are actually buying that car for.
Yeah.
If you know anything about loan terms or anything like
Yeah.
that, you're gonna get your ass kicked in that
Yeah.
conversation,
100%.
and you're gonna walk away with probably pretty bad.
Mhm.
And you gave away all your authority, you signed away, and there you go. Well, that's what's happening every single day, all the time with doctors.
100%.
People are just walking in, they don't know how to ask the right questions, they don't have the confidence to ask the right questions, they don't know what questions to ask,
Yes.
and so they give their authority away, and they're basically written a prescription, and they're told to take it, and they almost feel this guilt, like, "Oh my god, if I don't take this medication, and what happens if something goes wrong, then
Yep.
I didn't take the advice of the professional, and then that's on me," and there's just, like, this whole weird dialogue, but that makes sense. If you don't know what's going on, you don't know how your body works, then, um, yeah, I mean, you just have to give away your authority.
You hope the best.
Yeah, hope that they're gonna take care
So
of
our
you. Mission at Optimyze was to empower others to take responsibility for their own health, take responsibility for their
Mm.
own health through natural methods. And
Love
to
that.
the doctor's defense, because, I have compassion for them too. I mean, they're part of this big, ugly system. Since COVID, I think
Yeah.
everybody's gotten a good bird's eye view of, like, this big,
100%.
ugly system, this machine, that is really powerful. The doctors have lots of limitations. They can't really speak up because then they're threatened, and the people that did speak up obviously were threatened, some of their license was taken away.
Yep.
They, are constantly being solicited by attractive women who are pharmaceutical reps going into
Yep.
their offices, trying to sell them the next best thing
Yep.
since sliced bread when it comes to the world of pharma, and so there's a whole strategy around that. That's why they hire attractive women to
Yep.
go into these offices and coerce these, doctors. There's that element, and
Mm.
there's also, the element of people don't take responsibility for their own health.
Yeah.
The doctors, in order for them to be to make doctor's office is a business. People tend to forget about that. It's a
It's a
business,
business.
and people are using insurance, and insurance doesn't pay very much. So in order for them to make enough money to pay their staff and their nurses and everyone else involved,
Mhm.
they have to see a lot of patients
Yeah.
because insurance doesn't pay, and that's why a lot of these good doctors are moving to these cash plans that, they can spend more time with their patients and
Yeah.
whatnot. But if we're just talking about the traditional process, they have to, see a lot of patients. So how can you reverse 20 years, 30 years, 40 years of
Mm.
bad behavior, bad thinking, bad diet decisions, bad discipline,
Mm.
bad fitness routines? How are you gonna reverse all of that in a 15-minute conversation about the health? They're
You're
not.
not.
And so they're just gonna give you your prescription, and you're gonna walk out the door, and you're gonna go to CVS, and you're gonna buy your stuff, and you're gonna go home, and you're gonna take the magic pill, and you're gonna go back to eating bread and all the other sugar and bad sleep and bad
Yep.
habits. And then you're gonna go into the doctor and say, "Okay, well, is this medication working?" "I'm feeling a little bit happier now." "I'm not as sad. Maybe I am." Like, it's just that's just the industry.
Ugh,
And so I was just like, "This is broken.
it
This
is.
is broken." And everybody's gotten a taste of that. Listen, I feel confident everybody's had some sort of experience of that for
Yeah, agreed.
themselves or for their family. And so I just said, "Well, I'm done bitching about it. I'm gonna do something about it, and I'm gonna show people that all of this research that I've done on all of these therapies
Mm,
and through my own experiences, they work. They work for men. They
yes.
work for giving your body more energy. They work to help you get better sleep. They work to help with inflammation and pain. They work to shed body fat and the things and bloat and all the problems that people have there. They
Yes.
help with autoimmune. They help with all kinds of different
Mhm.
things, and they're effective.
Yeah.
You can't just use them once and expect to just be healed. Like,
Mm-mm.
"Oh, I'm healed. I'm good. I'm gonna go back to my shitty behavior and habits."
Yep.
No, we actually have to get you to change your habits and routine.
I love that.
And so I started to do the research, bring the technology to people
Yeah.
in the areas where we have centers, introduce people to these things. A lot of
Mhm.
people are introducing them now. It's actually very helpful that almost every podcast that's happening these days is talking about breath work, meditation, yoga, cold plunge, saunas. It's just everywhere. It's
Yeah.
a boom.
Here we are right now.
Right? And so that helps me because
Yeah.
there's all these people with huge followings that talking about it, and they come
Yeah.
into my center and they said, "Well, I saw Joe Rogan show, and Joe Rogan was talking to Gary Brecka, and they were talking about, how cold therapy is so amazing and breath work so amazing, and you guys do that here." And so we gave people a place where they can learn, educate, and most
Awesome.
important, practice because,
Yes.
you get stuck in the just the talking about it phase,
Yeah.
"Oh, let's talk about, oh, cold therapy is great for this, great for that. Let's talk about cold therapy for 6 months, but I've never even got my ass in the cold pool."
No idea how it even looks, works or nothing.
Yeah, so, the action is the most important element, so,
Wow.
that's what we do.
You had actually someone just show up, someone famous. Was it LL Cool J or something or
Iced tea.
Ice-T? Yeah,
Yeah,
Ice-T, man. He
yeah.
was there
Iced
checking you
tea
guys
and
out.
cocoa, came. We had iced tea and cocoa, we had Rufus Du Sol, if you're into electronic music.
Yeah,
We
yeah.
had, Fall Out Boy, if you're into rock and roll. Um,
Love it.
we had a lot of different things. It's been cool.
That's awesome.
But the people that and we have lots of professional athletes that come. But, you know, I don't want it to be a place where just the rich get to go
Yeah.
or just the famous get to go. Um, I want everybody to be able to change and have a positive effect on themselves,
Yeah.
to their family, to
Mhm.
their work, and that's
Oh, yeah. Amen, 100%. I just wanna pull out a couple things. It was interesting, for anyone who's watching who is working a 9 to 5 or thinking about getting into real estate, so you found this podcast or starting your own, who knows, maybe your own, health and wellness facility. It was when you said enough was enough and you saw the writing on the wall and you just weren't aligned, and so then that's when you really, like, said, "Okay, I'm asking these questions." Doctors are like, "Well, this is my job, not your job." And I could relate to that because even when I was working for various different 9 to 5s, doesn't matter if it was Safeway, Monument Car Parts, Costco, you name it, it's like you ask questions, like, just do your job, and that's what kinda fired me up to get my own good business going, be an entrepreneur, have that freedom. So anyone out there that, if you're curious to George and you're not getting your answers, it's okay to get your own answers, and do your own research and go out there and do something for yourself just like what we've done. Love to be the inspiration for anyone out there to go deeper with that process. And so now let's just pivot into now like practical stuff. Like for the viewers, for the listeners, maybe they want to get off this podcast after they're done. They're gonna go like, I don't know, go grab some ice from the store and like fill up their tub, whatever. Like let's talk about maybe some success stories, some a little bit of science behind it.
right.
Because I'm sure, everyone's caught up.
I do wanna add something to what you just said.
Yeah.
We hire professional people for their, consult,
Ah,
right?
yeah.
So think about it. You hire a realtor for their, consult, right?
Yeah.
Help
Yeah.
me to find a home
Mhm.
in this area, and you're an expert in this area, and you're gonna help me find a home, and you're gonna help me negotiate the best deal.
Yeah.
But if you're not doing a good job, what am I gonna do? I'm gonna fire you.
Yeah.
I'm gonna fire a realtor. You could do the same thing with the mortgage broker, right? I'm
Yep.
gonna help you get the best loan, the best bank, the best circumstances.
Mhm. Mhm.
You do that with lawyers all the time, all kinds of lawyers,
Yeah.
right? So why wouldn't you do that with your doctor?
Ooh,
Your doctor's just a consult. You hire them,
I
you talk
like
with
that.
them,
I
if you
like
vibe
that.
with them, if you like their perspective on health, if you like their advice, you keep them. If you don't, you fire them.
Yeah.
And so if they're not telling you to change your diet, if they're not telling you to change behavior, if they're not telling you any of these things, and they're just telling you to take medication, you should fire them,
Ooh,
and you
I
should
love
find
that.
another doctor. And there's plenty of doctors, medical doctors, naturopathic
Yeah.
doctors, all kinds, nurse practitioners, physician's assistants. There's lots of options out there. There's no shortage.
Yeah.
But I look at them as just they're people who I consult with. I have questions. I'm gonna see if I vibe with them. I'm gonna see if their philosophy on health is
Mhm.
in alignment with mine,
Mm.
and then if so, then we're gonna create a strategy together.
Yeah.
If not, then I'm gonna go and continue seeking,
I love
searching,
that.
right? Why don't we treat doctors like that? I'm not quite sure, but,
It's interesting. It's interesting.
everyone should.
You should, and a quick side note on that, cliff note, my mother-in-law just went through a procedure about a week and a half ago because she was having some chest pain, she thought it was her heart, and so they basically put her on some medication, blood thinners, whatever, just precautionary stuff,
Sure.
and she went through the procedure and found out that, okay, everything's pretty much okay, she's just not eating healthy, the lining of, like, arteries are thinning, she's in her 60s, getting into her 70s, and she needs to take better care of herself, so the doctor said, "Hey, here's the medication, but if you take better precautions, take better care of yourself, you can get those off you can actually get you off the medication,
That's good stuff.
and you need to do X, Y, and Z." Now, the only thing is that and anyone who's listening, easier said than done, right? Because there's the ego, there's the
Discipline.
discipline, right? Because you have to 30, 60, 90 days to form a habit, turns into new behavior, so you can be able to do the things that you're gonna talk about here, and so you can actually feel different. It's not just, like, overnight, right? So
Discipline's the hardest thing for people.
yeah,
That's the one thing I've learned is that as a society, as a culture, we really struggle with discipline, and
yeah,
I'm not quite sure where that comes from or why. Maybe it's because we have so much here, we have so much abundance
yeah.
that we don't necessarily have to work so hard like
No.
in other nations do. But we have really unhealthy routines, and that it really leads to a lot of our demise, a lot
Yeah,
of our illness mentally, physically,
yeah.
emotionally. So most of the conversation that I have with people is about creating healthy routines and sticking with it.
Mhm.
And that's what I have found to be the recipe for success,
100%.
for health, not only for health, but for business, for all kinds of things.
Yeah, and I
Um,
mean, not to go on a whole, like, tangent on this, but you look at the meta, right? Metaverse and games and social media and all that type of stuff, how easy is it for to tune in and you see a hot girl or hot guy doing this, doing that, you could just imagine, like, "Oh, look at me, I could look that good too," and then you have an avatar, right? And then you're like this person, but you're not, and then you turn off the console or you get off the phone and you look in the mirror and you're just depressed, right? So you like that have this, like, dopamine hit because you see the thing and it's like right then and there, but then it goes away, right? And it's sad, but I feel like this technology is not helping people as much as believe it could, and that
well,
might could be a cause and effect too.
the you brought up a very important part is the dopamine connection,
Yeah.
and we
Well, I hear
keep
you talking about it, so
yeah, dopamine connection's really interesting, and we're learning a lot. Um, it's a good book, Dopamine Nation, and
okay, okay,
there's there's something to say about um, losing all of your dopamine through things like scrolling and some of the other things that you mentioned. And
mm,
so, how does that lead into addictive behavior, right?
yeah.
There's a connection between lack of dopamine and addiction. And we have all
Oh,
kinds of addictions. You know, most people think like, "Oh, I'm addiction." You automatically think of drugs.
yeah,
Well, there are a general portion of the population that are addicted to drugs, and drugs are a big problem. I think we know that,
yeah,
especially with fentanyl these days and some of the
mm,
harder drugs out there. But let's talk about the other addictions, the sugar addictions that people don't talk about
my daughter,
that create like serious metabolic health for older people.
yeah,
I mean, you look at the older population, you have a big diabetes issue, and
huge,
that's a sugar issue
yeah,
and carb issue,
it's sodium,
right? Sodium, right, and different things. But the sugar really is the problem. It's the drug that nobody's really talking about. It's as lethal as It's what's causing all the heart disease, you know?
Yes.
They've always talked about, "Oh, meat's causing heart disease." Well, we know that's not true.
Mm,
And fat's causing heart disease. We know that's not true.
mm,
It's the sugar that's causing the
yes.
heart disease, and obviously now we're learning about seed oils and the processing of the food that's causing and contributing to, like, this oxidative stress.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'd love to get into the science. We can actually give people some concrete,
Mm,
things on how these therapies work, what are the problems in our society. Um, but basically, we have inflammation issues. So if
yeah.
you look overall at like what's going on, you have overarching inflammation issues. You have people walking around with inflammation issues, which basically means you have an immune system issue because
Mm,
inflammation is part of the immune
yeah.
system. And what do we notice during COVID? People got their ass kicked in the United States from
Yes.
COVID compared to many other countries. And it's like, why is that? And there was all these, like, really lame reasons that people were saying, socioeconomic and this
Yeah.
kinda stuff. No, 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 no. Inflammation issues, metabolic issues, and
Mm,
that's all based on the blueprint of our own health,
yes.
which we have serious metabolic issues. And so that's kind of the overarching reason why people are walking around not feeling very well.
Mm,
And so, they have high inflammation, lethargy, low energy,
yeah.
low libido,
Yeah.
the hormones are out of whack.
Mhm.
And then they say, "Well, I have mental health issue. I have anxiety or depression,
Mm,
or I'm getting poor sleep." Well, it's like, "Of course you are.
yeah.
Of course you have anxiety. Of course you have depression."
Yeah.
Your body is, like, being bombarded, by inflammation. Your body's on fire,
Mhm.
So how do we, get your body back to optimal shape where it's, like, functioning like it should?
I love that.
Functioning like it should.
Yeah.
And I think we've all accepted an element of we don't even know what it feels like to feel good anymore,
I can see that.
right? We don't even know what it feels like to feel good. We've just accepted, right? And you hear some people say, "Oh, I'm just getting older. That's just the way it is." How many people say that, right?
A
Sometimes
lot.
you ever look in your yearbook? I mean, I'll be 45. Sometimes I look at my yearbook. I said, or people I know that are my age. I said, "Holy shit, they've been living really hard. They've
Yes.
been living really hard." 45 years old. Damn.
And you could tell.
Yeah.
Look in the mirror. That's nothing, not being negative here. It just, you have to self-reflect.
Yeah. So there's a lot that we can do. And
Yeah.
that's really what I want to talk about here, not just all the problems that exist. I think we're well aware of the problems, but there's a lot of things that we can do.
Mm,
And it really all goes back to nature. And I know that might sound odd to some people, but really nature is where the answers are. And when I started
yeah.
to travel the world and study and learn about native tribes from all over the world,
Mm,
what I learned is that they had a lot in common, even though they supposedly did not connect and speak to each other,
okay.
right?
Yeah.
So, like, people in Africa had no connection with the people in South America. The
Got
native
it.
people in North America, Native Americans, had no connection prior
Mm,
to the Europeans, and the Europeans used to be indigenous as well,
okay.
and the Mongolians and the Asians, and so, like, or the Aborigine people in Australia.
Yeah.
And so, what do they have in common? Some of the things they have in common is that they were getting the main elements that the earth has to provide. And the main
Mm,
elements that earth has to provide is magnetism,
mm,
sunlight,
mhm.
and oxygen,
Wow.
and water. We'll talk about water too. You have warm water, you have cold water,
Yeah.
right? So you have magnetism. Magnetism comes from the earth.
Mm,
We've always been connected to the earth, grounded to the earth.
yep.
We've always been touching the earth. We've been outside in Earth,
Yes.
experiencing the planet, outside. Now they say 90% of humans, 90% of our day is spent indoors. Over 90%. It's actually even higher than that. I don't
Yeah.
have the exact statistic. You can look it up.
I'm a part of that.
It's really high. And so they say that's having a very negative effect on our health by being indoors all the time. It's a drastic difference from where we used to be.
Mm,
So we're indoors. We're shielded from Earth's magnetism from
yep.
sunlight,
Yep.
and we're not spending enough time outdoors. And so, what's so important about magnetism? Well, now you hear about therapies like PEMF,
Mm,
pulse electromagnetic field therapy. It's a big craze in the wellness movement.
okay.
There's all kinds of very expensive PEMF devices. And so PEMF is behaving very much like grounding is. And so by being in nature with your bare feet touching the earth,
Yeah.
soil, sand, grass, right?
Mhm,
Actual earth,
mhm. Yeah.
not your pool deck. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So when you're touching the bare earth, you're getting electrons from the planet. You're getting this low Gauss magnetism from the planet,
It's free too.
and it's free. And what happens is it plays a very important role in something called oxidative stress and
Mm.
balancing out the free radicals that are causing damage to your cells.
Got it.
So very, very important for inflammation, very, very important for oxidative stress,
Yeah.
very, very important for circulation,
Okay.
very, very important for oxygen delivery. Because
Mm.
the other thing about grounding or PEMF is what it does is it separates the red blood cells and allows the red blood
Mm.
cells to travel more freely, and red blood cells that will carry oxygen to your cells. They're literally the oxygen carrying vehicles for your cells. So by giving the body a magnetic charge, a small magnetic charge, separates the
Mm.
red blood cells, they cover more surface area, and they can most likely be more easily absorbed into the tissues, into the cells, and the cells need oxygen.
Huge.
It's their fuel.
Yeah.
So we are disconnected. We also wear rubber sneakers. Even if we are in nature, if we're hiking, we are still disconnected from the
Yep.
planet. So I think it's really important to find a routine and a way to how do you get into nature naturally? How do you at least put your feet in the bare ground for 5 minutes a day? The other thing that we found out during COVID is that the people who had the hardest time with the virus were people who were vitamin D deficient.
Oh,
And so we have a
son.
pandemic within its own of people who are deficient in vitamin D. Once again, we're not out in sunlight. We're constantly covering up from the sun. We've been coerced into thinking that the sun is dangerous and we should be hiding from it.
Yeah.
Um, so there's that element of learning more about vitamin D synthesis, and optimizing your vitamin D levels.
Yeah.
It's such an important vitamin. It's the only vitamin that we don't necessarily have to get from, say, fruits, vegetables, or foods. We
Interesting.
create it.
Yeah.
We create it just by being in the sun.
It's
If
amazing.
you think about life, how important of a vitamin is that, that your body says, we're going to create a system within the network of the body where your body is going to create its own vitamin D just from being in the sun
It's huge.
exposure. Huge. So obviously it's a very high hierarchy in the world of like what the body needs.
Yeah.
The other element is oxygen. And so we talked about Wim Hof. We talked about breathing
Yeah.
exercises. We talked about the importance of that. And so oxygen equals energy. So anytime
Mm.
people are feeling low energy, right? I'm low energy. I don't have the energy to get up and go. What they're really saying is that they have low oxygen.
Ah.
So how do you get more oxygen in the body? How do you make oxygen more efficient? How do you build your CO2 tolerance?
Mm.
And so there's a whole wave of learning on a massive scale in the West of people learning about breathing exercises and learning about this whole mechanism of action.
Wow.
And there's also some really cool biohacking machines. They have exercise with oxygen training. Obviously, we have Wim Hof method.
Yeah.
And so one thing I do every single morning before I leave the bed, before I even leave my bed and step
Mm.
outside, I do 3 rounds of Wim Hof method breathing,
Mm.
and that's, like, the first thing I do, because if anything, your oxygen is lowest in the morning
Yeah.
because your respiratory rate is low, your heart rate is low, your
Yep.
blood is not circulating as fast. Obviously, your body's in a kind of conservative mode, and so how do I wake up, bring new fresh oxygen into the body to give my body the energy
Yep.
boost that I need to carry out my day?
I love that.
Yeah.
I'm right there with you every single morning because I'm in this office. And so I do the red light therapy and I do the Wim Hof breathing as I'm doing the red light therapy. And it might be TMI, but you put sunlight on your testes and you can also, raise your testosterone level, things like that nature. I do need to go outside in the sun more often and ground as far as with my feet. And I know that Optimize has a lot of these things as well, has the red light therapy, has the cold. And what I've learned from going to Optimize is that it's good stress. It's the good stress that you offer at the facility that really helps people be able to just you have to be in the now. You can't think about the past or the future because you're in 30-degree freezing ass cold water. So you got to breathe it out or you're literally going to like, I don't know, you got to breathe it out, then you got to get out and then you got to, gonna move. You have 'em move, and then you're doing this rotation through the whole facility. There's not much time besides just being in that now, and then you're, like, either sweating your ass off or you're freezing or, and it's not that bad. It's actually really amazing, but, that's just first thing that comes to mind as a testimonial from going to Optimize and going through the procedure of the
Yeah, I mean,
facility.
stress is good for us. I mean, stress has a bad rap,
It does.
and so we've all learned that stress is bad and we should try to avoid it. The reality is, staring at the computer all day and, answering emails and angry customers or whatever it might be and solving problems, that type of stress is not necessarily good for us all day.
No.
But environmental stress is what our body has adapted to for hundreds of thousands of years.
Yeah.
It's what we've adapted to. Somewhere on this planet right now, there are people like herding sheep in the freezing tundras of Mongolia,
There are.
and so we have the same makeup as they do.
Yes.
Their body's built just like ours are. We've adapted for thousands and thousands of years to deal with the elements, but we don't expose ourselves to the elements anymore because
Mhm.
somebody told us that if you're cold, you're gonna catch a cold, which is a bunch of
Yes.
horseshit.
Yes.
Um, don't go out into the sun, all of
Put your
these.
shoes on when you're
Yeah,
outside.
put your shoes on, you're gonna get an infection by touching the dirt,
Yeah, you're gonna cut your toe or something. Yeah.
Yes, cut your toe. So, we've just become so weak. So really what our body needs is environmental stressors.
Yeah.
And simple environmental stressors that you have access to
Mhm.
is cold water, cold showers, cold plunge,
Yes.
right? All available, right? Places like Optimize are available. Cold shower is available. You
Yes.
can do that every single day and it's free. Saunas.
Mm.
Saunas are available. Your local gym has one. Optimized, we have infrared saunas.
Mm.
Saunas are relatively easy to find and
Every day for me too on that.
cost effective. The other thing is breathing exercises. You can bring more energy into the body through breath work, like Wim Hof method
Yes.
type of breathing. You learn the technique, you go take a class, you master your practice, you have that practice forever.
Mm.
The sun, obviously, there's less sunlight, right,
Yeah.
in, the wintertime now. So even if you're going out into the sun, you might not be getting enough, but get the blood work done. Learn what
Yes.
your vitamin D deficiencies are.
Yes.
You might have to supplement with vitamin D and K2 in order to offset that, right? Work with your doctor who has a
Yep.
good strategy, for those types of things. Um Warm water is also very effective. I know you have the jacuzzi outside. We have a jacuzzi at Optimize because we'll have people go from cold water, 37 to 42 degrees, immediately into 104 degrees, and have them do a few different rounds. Red light
Amazing.
therapy is very good. Now, there is no connection between red light therapy and UV.
Okay.
There's no ultraviolet in the red light therapy panels. Therefore, there is no vitamin D synthesis that's happening. But
Oh.
red light therapy is very good for inflammation, for collagen. It's very good for your skin,
Mm.
and it's also very good at one of this. What happens scientifically when you stand in front of these red light therapy panels, especially the effective ones, the good ones that are blasting your body with this frequency of red light, is that your body, your mitochondria,
Mm.
which is actually the energy centers for your cells,
Okay.
they're the ones that produce ATP. ATP is the currency that's needed to basically power the entire system.
Got it.
Um, it's basically like life force energy. Um, Red light therapy helps to remove nitric oxide
Mm.
from the mitochondria, from the cell,
Okay.
and brings that nitric oxide into your circulatory system, allowing your circulation to open up, which is called dilation, vasodilation, which
Mm.
helps with blood flow and circulation. But not only does it
Mm.
expel this nitric oxide gas, what it
Mhm.
does is it makes room for more oxygen.
Got it.
So by you doing the breathing exercise in front of that red light is a really good idea because you're bringing
Oh.
more oxygen into the body, and then you're allowing that red light to penetrate your skin, and then you're
Mm.
allowing that oxygen to come into the cells, into the mitochondria, so that it's basically converted into ATP, and
Wow.
ATP is energy.
I love that. And I was almost thinking to myself, like, I gotta go out in the sun because I'm not getting the vitamin D that I need from that. But get both, it sounds like, which is awesome. I love that.
Nothing trumps nature,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
right? Nature is really important. There's frequencies that exist in nature that we're just not getting inside of our home.
Mm,
But there are great technologies with red light therapy, with PEMF therapy, with the devices like infrared
yeah.
saunas that do an amazing job mimicking nature.
Wow.
But, nature is, superior to all.
Yeah, and what I'm gonna do is, in the comments below, I'm gonna go ahead and give everyone the Wim Hof breathing technique video that I use every single day. Link to Optimize, Michael's Instagram, Optimize Instagram. Go follow them so you can have some of these resources and what have you on that. It's been absolutely amazing. We're an hour and 10 minutes. This is, I mean, dude, this has been probably one of the most insightful episodes. I'm actually going to send this to the HR at Liftoff Agent who sponsors the show and have every single person at Liftoff watch this episode because this is very pertinent information. And I think that if you found value, share this as well because it's so, so important. But what I want to do is I want to put the camera angle on you and I want to close out. Depending on the feedback, I'm sure it's going to be amazing. We can go deeper in any subject area that anyone wants to hear from us. But what would you like to leave for our viewers and listeners as we close out? Just to take action now, man. I mean, you gave them so many things to think about, and I think there's some things that maybe they already won't go do. Maybe go take a cold shower right now, or just go out in the sun and like, put your feet in the grass. But is there anything that you want to leave them with?
Yeah, I mean, most of the things that we talked about, you have access to for free.
Mm,
And so start off with your practice for free, which if you wake up and get first light or sunrise, then basically you're getting the same energy that we talked about with the red light.
yep.
So create a routine where you're getting outside and taking in that first light. Put your feet in the grass. Talk about the magnetism.
Mm, mhm.
Learn how to use your resources to start doing research. Go down the rabbit holes. As you learn, you start to want it like strengthens your practice
Yeah.
because like you're doing it and then you're researching it and then you're learning more and then it motivates you to do it more because you're making those
Mm,
connections. And so I think that's a really important part of the process. It's about learning and applying, learning and applying,
love it.
learning and
I
applying,
love it.
taking action, but also learning why we're doing it. Humans always want to know why. And then the breathing exercise, you said you'll put the Wim Hof method video
Links below.
in the links, which is amazing. This exercise will transform your life. It has transformed mine.
Me too.
And then you have access to cold water. Even in Arizona, where typically it's warm most of the year round, the showers are still cold right now in the wintertime. So there's really no excuse. You have access. What I will say is I know a lot of your um, audience are realtors,
Yeah.
and that's essentially the market that you work with, and people in the mortgage industries as well. And I love these types of people because to me they're hunters. You know,
Mm,
they're hunters. And what I love about the real estate community is that, and I have a lot of realtors that come to my facility, and so I meet and talk with them all the time. Is that they're not just waiting for their next paycheck. They actually have to go out there and earn it. They have to be better. And that's what I
yes.
like about realtors is that they're so invested in personal development. It's because in order for them to improve, right,
Mm,
to earn more income and to be one of the, say, leading realtors in their markets,
mm,
they have to get better. And so they're always very open-minded to tools and
yes.
different things that they can do to become better. And that's why I like working with realtors
I love
because
that.
they're open. And so we have a lot of realtors that come and they do biohacking, cold plunging, Wim Hof method, and they'll use that as a staple in their day to either start off their day with us or they'll come in the afternoon and they'll finish their day with us depending on their schedule.
Mm,
And I have seen so much progress of all the realtors that you talked about earlier on that basically have left the industry because of the economic climate that we have. The realtors that are coming to Optimize, they're still selling houses. They're still grinding.
they're optimized.
They're optimized. Yeah, they feel good. And so I just have a lot of respect for the real estate community and all the people that support it because of the type of person that it attracts.
Yeah.
And they're open-minded, willing to learn and try things new and to be better.
Mm,
And so they've been awesome clients to work with. But going back to like what you can do, you have the earth. You can put your bare feet 5 minutes every day. You can wake up with first light and go outside. You could do the Wim Hof method breathing. It's an 11-minute commitment. You can take a cold shower. Those four things, if you did that every single day for 30 days, you'd be a changed person.
wow. I love that. I think that's a great way to end the episode with practical action steps they could take to just mind, body, spirit, get more grounded and connected. Michael, this has been an amazing podcast episode, and I'm so glad that now we can say it's in the books. I can't wait for us to go live so everyone who's now watching this, obviously it's live, can enjoy it and share it with someone and be able to practically add this to your life for hopefully 2024 and beyond. So thanks so much for being on, man.
Thanks, Norman. Yeah, appreciate you having me.
Of course. And thanks to all our viewers and listeners, as it is our intention for you to take things from our podcast to apply to your business and have more massive success. Subscribe, notification bell, Friday, 3:30 Pacific Standard Time. New episodes come live each and every week. And a big thank you to Liftoff Agent for sponsoring the show. We'll see you guys all on the next one.